So don't you tell me I am selfish just because I look out for myself. I've been happy, working hard, so I won't have to cry when I'm older. I could have done this or that. I remember when I used to. Don't do it cause it doesn't work. I'd rather tell her, shoot your shots. I did it, so I know you got this. We're all living what we manifest. You'll get your dreams, just do your best. So don't you tell me.
Welcome to Nwa Cane Corsos podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
Welcome back to another show, Nwa Cane Corsos, where we talk all things dogs. I got some special guests in the house, Martin and Schoolboy. What's up, gentlemen?
How you doing?
Good, doing good. Everything good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everything's well.
Glad to be here again. Glad to have Martin on here too.
Oh yeah. It's been a long time
with you guys today.
Yes, sir. Yeah. If it's a people that probably not first time tuning in, Schoolboy, can you just give them a brief intro who you are?
Yeah, well, I've been involved with I'm mostly a pit bull guy. I grew up country, so when I was younger, we had horses, cattle, livestock. We also had working cow dogs, so I've had dogs my whole life. We had German shepherds, we had mutts, different animals, and that's kind of the way when I got into pit bull. That's kind of the way I looked at it. Meaning, you have domestic animals for a purpose. They have to provide a function. Even if it's a dog that's a pet, like we had German shepherds, they were pets, but they were also our companions and our protectors. So anytime I look at an animal, it doesn't matter if it's used for food, that's a function and a purpose as well. But when we're talking about sporting or working animals, they have a particular function. That's what they were bred for. Every breed of dog, every breed of horse, every breed of chicken, used in cattle, oxen, whatever you want to think about, everything had a purpose and it was developed along the lines of those purposes. So when I got into the pit bulls, that's one of the reasons I did, for the competition side of it, to be a competitor, eventually a breeder. So I've been involved with the breed for almost 50 years. And along with that, I'm also a show judge. I've judged weight pools in several different states in the United States and all over Mexico, Central, South America, Europe, judging shows, along with going on several hog hunts. Because I think if I'm going to talk about a particular subject, I have to have some kind of information about hands-on, so to speak. I'm not a hunter. I'm not a game fowl guy, but I've been involved in them in some way or another. And with the pit bull, I think the more aspects of it you can be involved in, then the more experience you're going to have with it, and the more knowledge you can use to your benefit.
Gotcha. Martin.
Yeah, my name's Martin Gonzalez Arceo. I live here on the Oregon coast. I'm in the American Bulldog. I had pit bull terriers before, middle school and high school. I love the dogs. They were a little much for me to handle as a kid. So I have the American Bulldogs now. They're the bully type. They're companions first, and home guardians, vehicle guardians, driveway guardians is also what I breed for. When I first started with the American Bulldog, they were a little much for some people to handle, and I would get some back or they would have to be rehomed. So having a dog that serves its function as a guardian and a companion that is easy to live with is extremely important to me. Sometimes you have those dogs in the kennels that just bark and pace all day. They just need constant attention. And you have those American Bulldogs that are ready to play. They're alert, but they're okay with sleeping hours at a time if you're home. So that's kind of what I do. I'm involved in some poultry. I grew up around poultry. I live out here in the country also. So that's what I do. I'm in the restaurant industry, so I do that most of the time.
Gotcha. All right. Um,
I
this
love to eat.
you ain't the only one. I tell you what. Up here you have a variety of spirits. With me probably being the least experienced. Martin, how long you been breeding?
I've been breeding the American Bulldog since 2012, and I had the pit bulls for about 2 years before that.
Okay, and then Schoolboy almost 50 years. So it's a variety up here.
Yeah, I don't have dogs anymore. I want to make it clear. I don't have dogs anymore.
Right.
But I'm involved. I have YouTube, and I
Right.
go all over the place. Anyways, but I have a protege that took my blood and kept it going. So it's been around uh, almost 40 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, same bloodline, same dogs. There's stuff added to it, but try to keep it as straight as possible. You know,
Yeah.
and with that, you try and keep the traits that you that that you like, that you want to preserve, and you can do that over extended periods of time
Hmm.
using certain methods. And it's basically just following the traits.
Yes, sir.
Keep
So let
them
me
in there, don't lose them.
yeah. I'm gonna ask you about that, but so it's a lot of information out on YouTube. Everybody got their breeding preferences, their breeding a lot of science involved in breeding now. Um, but going back into that point you was about to make, how did breeders select dogs in earlier times?
Mostly based on performance.
Hmm.
Along with that, if they were just starting in and acquiring dogs, you have to have a certain amount of experience. That takes time. So it might take a few years or a couple years, whatever it is. And some people from Jump Street got in on good dogs, but they wanted to go to breeders that were producing dogs, good ones, and also dogs that were being used in competition. So, for example, with the pit bull, if you look at most of the bloodlines named after dogs,
Hmm.
they're dogs that were competed with.
Right.
Grand Champion Zebo, Grand Champion Art, Bo Leo, Mayday, Grand Champion Mayday. That's the foundation of it, right? Because without performance, the pedigree doesn't really mean anything, right?
Hmm.
They coincide with each other. If you have the performance side covered or the function side covered, that pedigree becomes very important. It's a roadmap, family history, and it tells you, which direction you can go moving forward, right? So basically, that's how it was done, and mostly word of mouth. When periodicals start coming out, then people would advertise, but it still involved travel unless somebody lived in your area or knew not too far away, which that happened a lot too. That's why you see certain bloodlines or certain breeders' dogs or certain dogs themselves from a particular area becoming popular in that area and then spreading out uh, later on, because those people that lived there had good dogs, so naturally people that lived by wanted dogs from them. But that's what the older guys would do. They would go to the people that had basically a record to back up their breeding program, and then they would go from there. And breeders, most future breeders, let's say Tudor or Heinzel, they would acquire dogs from several different breeders,
Hmm.
and then start their own family of dogs, have a foundation, build from there, right? And like Tudor got dogs from Leitner and Colby, and Heinzel got dogs from Tudor and Colby and Hemphill and Corvino. They all kind of knew each other, right? And they would get dogs from the guys in the past, whether it was Armitage or Williams, or all these guys kind of knew each other, or at least knew of their dogs. And you just start getting dogs from each other, and then you make a foundation, and then you start breeding your dogs. And at some point, all your dogs are going to be related to some extent or another, some tight, some loosely, some whatever. But that's how they would do it.
Gotcha. So Martin, what what has been your most beneficial way you have learned dog breeding, or has it been a combination of many things? The science, the older dog men wisdom.
Definitely being obsessed with dogs. You want to learn everything, you want to hear everything that sounds right. You're willing to pay for information. As a kid, I was willing to walk to the library and check out every single book and then like the book and then try and find it to buy it. Listening to people who were doing a good job, who had the dogs I liked, and most recently on the internet, trying to learn as much as I can. And then when I would hear from someone in the beginning, I'd be like, all right, that sounds good. And then someone else would maybe come along and contradict it. And then I'd have to kind of figure out what it meant. And sometimes I wouldn't figure it out right away. And then 2-3 years later, I'd figure out, yeah, that was wrong what I heard first.
Right.
And always tread lightly. And I feel like I've learned a lot in the last 8 years. But I always tell this to people who breed chickens, people who breed dogs, people who are with other animals. I say, this is my theory. This is what I've learned. This is what I'm doing now because I haven't finished it. I have 4 generations on my yard, and it's taken a little bit longer than that. So I think hopefully, God willing, I'm halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
And after I finish the second half, I could say this is the way, one way to do it. This is the way I did it. But right now, I call it theory, proven by other people supposedly, but I haven't proved it yet.
Yep. Yep. That's the main thing. Is
Yeah, you gotta
theories
be
of
minded
yeah.
and follow the science and just look into everything, even stuff like embark. Like some people in some communities of dogs are saying embark DNA testing or wisdom panel. This is bare minimum. You should do this when you sell your dogs. All right, I'm not saying that. If they do it, it's cool because
Mm.
if I buy a couple dogs and they're already embarked, in my mind, that's one less generation of test breeding. With the American Bulldog, we have a condition called ICH, and I ran into it in 2 breedings. It's a recessive gene that when it gets both genes, the puppies are born with a skin condition. Their whole skin is just like an open sore that never heals.
Mm-hmm.
So they get infections and die. So those pups don't make it to adulthood at all. So when I did my test breedings, I got that. Now I knew, hey, both of these dogs are carriers. I need to find a dog that's not a carrier. I went to another dog who wasn't supposedly a carrier, and it was a carrier. So, I wasted
Hmm.
two breedings right there if I would have
Yeah.
just had the embark. But once you have your dogs and you know what embark tests for, and you know your dogs are fine, and you just keep going, you don't add new blood. There's stuff like that shouldn't pop up. So that's just one example of ways that I'm learning. I'm learning slow, but I tend to not make the same mistake twice.
Yeah. Yeah. That embark testing is a tool. Um, I know some people that lean heavily on it. Me myself, I like balance. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that because I've talked to many breeders, right? And and they might not even use embark. This is your old time breeder.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "Man, I ain't got that shit in my lines," but they know it. You know what I mean? And then you test their dog, you test their dogs, and they don't have it. They were like, they know their lines. You know what I'm saying? Um, and other people probably had tested it for them and things like that. But I like that good balance of learning. I don't like too extreme one way or another. I know a lot. I see. This is what I see, y'all. I see guys that either they pedigree breeders lean heavily on science and math all the way, COI, COR, all this stuff. Uh, I see a lot of that nowadays. I almost see that like the wisdom, that yard wisdom you get when you visit a older breeder and those things and how to breed for certain things is almost going out the window. It's more about numbers now. Not knocking it. I'm just saying that it's not. It seemed like it's extreme in some ways instead of a good balance. What is the most important thing for you, Martin, for the first thing you looking at? If you didn't know anything about how do I put this? Uh For a beginner, what would the first thing you tell him to learn about dogs?
You have to learn the breed, of course, see what
Mhm.
it looks like. You have to look at within the breed. Some breeds you can have a couple styles of dogs. You have to know what you're going to get into and what you want. You know, whether it's maybe an in-betweener between two styles, you have to know what you're going to do, because you don't want to get 3 or 4 generations in and then want to switch your styles or your type of dog, or say, hey, these dogs are hardcore working dogs, and I can't sell to hardcore working people because I don't go out to events. People don't know me. I'm selling to pet homes,
Mhm.
impulse buyers, or something like that. You don't want to do that. You're gonna, you have to know the lane. You have to know the breed. You have to know if you're gonna sell more dogs than you keep. You have to be able to do all that, or it's gonna slow you down. That's the first thing. Second thing is with breeding, be able to look at a dog in front of you and know what you have to avoid the kennel blindness. Now, some degree might be a thing at first. It definitely was with me. I was terrible at it at first, and even my dad, he's been helping me with this stuff. He went through his cell phone and went through the old pictures, and he's like, "Man, I thought the dogs we had at the beginning were awesome. They were great. Look how bad they look."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I told you I was trying to pet home dogs like crazy in the beginning, and my family slowed me down. But now we're bumping numbers up, and then bumping numbers back down. Just pet homing stuff, just like an overproduction. You'll have a better looking yard if you can produce 20 and then cut down to 10, and do that, like, I don't know, every 2 years, every year, every 3 years. Just bump it up and then cut it in half. Keep your half best dogs. Even if you have to fix some dogs, so your stuff doesn't get into breeding hands, whatever it is. That's another thing. Some people don't realize, with the modern age and how things are with breeds, is how much you're going to have to pet home, at least at first. You're just going to get rid of dogs. It's just not everything is going to work, especially when you're in a breed like mine, where you have a bunch of different types. And if you follow those pedigrees back to the early 2000s and 90s, the dogs and the pedigrees might not be the style of the dogs and the pedigrees you have closer to up front. So there's other breeds like the Borble that have different type of breeds. So you have to be aware of that. If you're after a certain style of dogs, you might get pop-ups that are different. So
Right, right. Hey, schoolboy. So modern day versus the past. What do you think the modern day breeder is missing from tools you remember in the past?
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, and by the way, Martin, you made a lot of good points there.
Hmm.
What you mentioned is people breeding on pedigrees, you know. And I tell people this when they if they want to get involved with the breed, just like you said, you have to learn everything you can about it. But that's across the board. Whatever you enjoy, whatever you love, whatever is your passion, you should know everything about it. The history of it, how it was developed, what it does, what its function. Like for me, I love guns, right? I love horse racing. I love American muscle cars. So I love boxing. So it's important for me to get as much information as I can about that particular subject. I mean, you have guys, sitting on the couch every Sunday. They can give you all the stats of the teams, yards rushing, how many touchdowns, what their record is, what their performance is of this individual, that wide receiver, all that stuff. But they're dog breeders and they don't know shit about their dogs. They don't know the history of their own animal. Even if they had a pedigree, unless they were familiar with the dogs in the pedigree, which may be one generation, two generations, but they don't know anything past that. So for me, having all that information, it allows me to move forward in the beginning. I mean, forward from that point, moving forward as I breed my dog,
Hmm.
because I'll see stuff in them that I know was in the back, and I'm either going to keep it in my breeding program or I'm going to cull it from my breeding program. So when you have, uh, as far as in the past and now, and this question comes up, all the time, right? What would you rather have, a game dog or a hard mountain dog? It goes back and forth like that all the time, right? I never answer that question the way they want me to answer. I tell them, why can't you have both? Who would want only a game dog that don't have no mouth or no ability? Who would want only a hard mouth dog that's going to quit? It's ridiculous for me to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about old methods and new science, for me, it's not either or. You should put both together,
Mm-hmm.
right? If
Mm-hmm.
the new, because all science does is it tells you what people did in the past, or it tells you, it gives a name to a particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it does. And the new science comes up with stuff that we don't even know about, like he was saying with that disease. So speaking about the past, the way I looked at it was like this: some of my dogs could be destructive, right? So I would never breed two dogs that were destructive. I'm going to breed a dog. If it's destructive, I really like it, I'm going to breed it to a dog that's not like that. Now, if science can figure out in these particular dogs or in this family of dogs, there's a fault there. Just like he was saying, you don't want to breed a dog with that fault to another one that has the same fault,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to compound the fault and it's going to come out more.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past, it was more knowing the animals. Guys knew horses up and down, back and forth, all the way around. They knew dogs. And today, a little bit of that is being lost because children are not being raised with animals like they were in the past. So even if you take all the function out of it, they don't know that particular species of animal, whether it's a horse, dog, chicken, whatever. They don't know the little ins and outs because they don't spend time with them. They don't breed them. They don't see how they grow, how they develop, what their characteristics are, how they think. So that a lot of that is being lost. And
Right.
like I mentioned before, you can have a great pedigree, but if you don't know anything about the individuals of the pedigree, and there's nothing as far as performance or function or some kind of reason for you to have that particular individual, then you're just lost. You're just breeding on paper, or you're breeding on because I like this dog because it's red or black or blue or whatever color it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think both of them have to be utilized so that you can have an all around understanding of a particular breed of dog or your own family of dogs. I used to write everything down, everything I could think of, whether it was a show I was at, a show I went to, how I won, lost, all the schooling, how much they weighed at a certain age, what their color were, what their temperament was. I've got hundreds of notebooks going back 40 years to have that all that information. And what it does in my videos, it helps me use those as notes. So when I make a video, I just write down notes, and then it reminds me in my mind, what I'm going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're breeding dogs, if you have those notes from the past, you can reflect on them and use them with the individuals you have in front of you. Meaning something like, well, his great great grandfather weighed this much, had these particular traits, had this certain behavior and temperament, and I see it in this individual today. So those traits have been carried on for 3-4 generations, and I still have them now.
Right.
That's kind of how I look at it. You got to have both. Science
Right.
can help, but if you don't put science into practical use, it doesn't mean anything.
That's
It
right.
means nothing.
And another thing too, I'm like I say, I like the good balance of the wisdom, the real world wisdom, the science and everything. But I don't like if I was going to lean extreme, I'm going to lean on that human who has put his hands on it and raised it more than anything. But the thing about health tests, people have to realize it's a good thing. It's a great tool, but you better be careful on your who you buy the dogs from and the terminology of the contract, because this is what I've seen, guys. I've seen my camera's out. Hold on one second. I'm gonna keep talking though. I've seen people tout health testing this, health testing that, hip testing this, joint testing that. But but if something ever happens, they don't cover the dog. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't if you read the contract carefully, you'll see that it got to be severe hip dysplasia, debilitating hip dysplasia. They don't
Right.
say anything if it's mild dysplasia. So I just think breeders should be clear about what they're gonna cover. Most of the contract is just usually neurological, or something like that. So
Right.
and just because two healthy dogs are put together don't mean it
No.
won't create
For
a dog.
me, it's just that DNA test tells me pieces of information I'd like to know. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
for example, if somebody wants to breed a color out, they do a crossbreed and they don't want the tan points from the Rottweiler and their band dog or whatever, they can use that to breed the tan points out. If they're going to do an inbreeding, a brother sister inbreeding, they can do that, and it'll tell them what is it called, the coefficient of relation or the coefficient of inbreeding.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to go to a parent, it'll tell you what percentage of DNA it shares with a parent. You could have a parent and offspring that share 59%, and then another one that shares 45%. So if you wanted, you could take that one that shares 45% to breed. That's what I see a lot of people doing, also using those percentages that are otherwise just a probability, 50%.
Right.
Yeah. I tell people, because I'm not a scientist, right? And I understand a lot of the terminology, and I can read anything and understand it, right?
Mhm.
So in doing that, when I learn some terminology or I learn something scientific, right, I can relate it to something that I did in the past, even though in the past I didn't know what words they were using for it, right? But the technique is the same, the method is the same, the results are the same. So I always talk about preventative maintenance. And being that I'm not a scientist or a nutritionist or any dog psychologist, right? What I focused on was health, vigor, vitality, constitution, durability. So in my mind, if you have strong, healthy individuals and you call the ones that are not strong and healthy, and if you're in if you're the type of breeder that sells dogs and an individual pops up that doesn't meet your standard, in my experience, I'm gonna call it. But let's say it's a nice, healthy looking pup, and you sell it to a person, and these faults come out, right? If you would replace those dogs with those faults, or it's not a good individual, having that prerequisite of health and durability and all that, you're not going to have to replace a lot of dogs. You're not going to get a lot of calls after they leave your yard. So the percentage of having to replace dogs, if you have standards like I just mentioned, is going to be very low. It shouldn't be a lot. So when I see that happening, I mean, I've seen people they send me pictures, they send me little videos of the dog. Look at Schoolboy, look at how this dog came in. The dog got a gimp or lip or crooked leg, or it's got obviously, it's got rickets or something, can't even stand up, or it's heavily, severely undershot, or it's missing an eye, or it's, bow-legged, cowhawk, sway back. It's all messed up, right? People are selling dogs like that. And the reason they do it, in my opinion, again, is because they're trying to cover the loss that they had in putting all their money into raising and feeding and vaccinations and all this stuff, testing and all that stuff. Right? So all they're doing is giving you a problem that they don't want, rather than culling that individual, take the hit, take the loss, and producing better individuals where in the long run, you ain't going to have a lot of culls. You ain't going to have a lot of returns, right? Where people are not happy with your dogs. And over time, you're going to have that reputation as being a solid breeder that produces healthy individuals with good temperament and behavior. And every once in a while, there's going to be a call in there. For me, economically, that's not a big loss. I'll take that hit. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're putting a bunch of them out there, you're gonna put yourself in a hole where by word of mouth it's gonna get around. You sell people unhealthy dogs, and now you're gonna be stuck with 3 or 4 litters. You can't get rid of them. You're gonna have to drop the price of them, or whatever it is you have to do, and then boom, just like that, you're out of the game. Nobody's gonna deal with you. Your reputation should matter. The quality of your individuals should matter. your family of dogs or whatever it is, chickens, whatever, should matter.
Yeah.
And for me, it all starts with that health first.
Right. I know people used to get on to me when I used to work a lot, you know, when I used to work these jobs and everything. And I'll be like accidentally winning the employee of the month. And I didn't kiss no tail or nothing like that. But they were like, dang,
Right.
well, dude, you a hard working dude, man. I had to do like, we respect your work ethic. And they said, why you work so hard? And I was like, man, because I don't want people saying shit to me. I don't, you know, I don't want them coming, you ain't doing this, you ain't doing. I hate that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'd rather put out the best product I could because I don't want to hear nothing about them dogs in
there
a
you
bag.
go.
You know what I mean? I don't want it to come back and bite me. So, and one thing people have to realize when you get into the dog game, you're gonna take hits. You're gonna take hits.
Yep.
You're gonna take heavy hits to your pockets. Heavy hits.
I've paid a $3,000 stud fee to get 2 puppies, and I only liked one of them.
Yeah.
And it's wrong gender, so I didn't keep it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
no, that happened.
Yeah.
We have a saying, probably you guys do in your thing. There ain't no money in dogs. You know, you don't make money like that. You know,
right.
You can't. They can help support their own, you know, feed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there have people that have made money on pit bulls, but they're few and far between. One guy every generation. You know, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard this before. The word tanda.
Yeah.
Tanda. These dogs are a tanda. You get money in, and then maybe later you'll get it back, and then you put it back in, and then you get
put it back in.
Yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, it has to be like even in the horse racing community where there's millions, if not billions of dollars involved. There's only certain individuals that actually make money doing it because of all the cost involved. And even with game fowl guys, you can win all kinds of derbies. You can be at a high level, but there's a cost to that. You have to have hundreds and hundreds of birds, and you have to have all this feed and upkeep and all that, right? So if you can keep yourself above 50% cost, you know, maybe 51, 52, you're golden, man, because you're not really losing money, right? You're not getting rich off of it, but you can continue to do what you like to do. And most of it is not out of pocket, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, with pit bulls back in the day, if you won enough, it helped pay for the dog. Mm-hmm. If you lost too much, it's hitting you in the pocket, man. You're not paying your bill. You might not pay your light bill or your rent or whatever. You got to be kind of smart about it.
Yeah, I often laugh. Because I kind of observe how people try to get attention toward them to sell their dogs. Because some dudes, this is their way of life. You know, I don't put all my ducks on these dogs, and I'm gonna live off the dogs. And sometimes I notice how a lot of them advertise, and they'll advertise, "This is the best dogs." Blase, blase, blase. Look at my facility, and look, I do this, I do that. You know, but anything you put out, somebody can knock something on it. Anything.
Oh yeah.
You show anything, it's something somebody can knock on it. For sure.
And people like that, they have income. Even if they have a nice facility, they have other income coming in from somewhere else, whether it's their wife working, they have multiple businesses, or they have a side hustle, whatever it is. Yeah. Even me, I can live on what I do now, right? And it would be very cheaply. All this YouTube and the, you know, sales, books and all that stuff. But I have side hustles that help subsidize that income.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's what keeps us above water. We do this. My wife does this and that and blah. We got all this stuff. I sell other products. I have involvement in other things where I can make extra money doing that. Right. And it's the same thing with dog guys. That's how they do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you I don't want to be forced to use dogs as my main form of income.
Yeah.
Because I believe you just have to make some bad decisions. You know what I'm saying? You just have to crank
them
out. You have to crank them out.
Breeds on the property.
Say it again.
A lot of people who sell dogs for a living, they have tons of breeds, like 6, 7. From the little ones probably make the most money, take the least time, to the ones they like. It's what I've noticed, and you know, it's hard to become an expert in all of them.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. I noticed too. It's a lot of breeders. They might not advertise, but I know I do 2 breeds, but I see a dude that breed. I ain't gonna say but at least 5 different dogs. I was like, damn, what are you doing? And then they had a nerve enough to call us puppy mills and backyard breeders. You know, just smaller time guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're pointing a finger at you, and four fingers are pointing back at them.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the dog game is a different game because it's all kind of in my breed, the Corso. It is all kind of people involved. I mean, all kind of people. It's different than the American Bulldog. I mean, or the APBT. I mean, it's all kind of people involved in the Corso, brother.
Corso is, when I was in high school, I'd never heard. I started hearing of it maybe 8 years ago, heavy, and then all of a sudden, this is what I see from the outside. It shot up in popularity, and it's pretty fast. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe it had always been popular. But
No. It just really started to explode the last few years. I always knew about it because a person I know that had bred them for a long time, but no, it started to really get popular the last few years. Yeah.
That could be tough. For example, the companion, the French Bulldog. It was in had it in shows, got really popular, and it changed a lot. It really did change. Before the problem, I see French tins in newspaper for sale, 3/4 French Bulldogs, 1/4 Boston. I think relatively cheap, but now they got all the colors and stuff, and some of them look really nice, but you still have to be careful for what you. Some people aren't.
Right.
I used to think some of the pit bull guys, they were really cutthroat, and then I hear from these other different breeds of dogs, or even some horse people and whatever, that, man, they worse than us, some of them.
I'm telling you, boy. I hear it all because I do this podcast. So like, I don't know why. Sometimes I wish people put things in the comments, but man, I'll get 100 calls about what you may say on this show, bro. Well, you know what? Well, he ain't right. Well, why you ain't tell it to him? I mean, why you put it in the comments?
Yeah.
Shit, I'm busy, brother. But anyway, both of you guys are unique in another way too, because you guys have messed with some gang fowl, and you still do, Martin, right?
So my family is from Jalisco in Mexico, and little town where we're from. People there have fowl, like people here have firewood. Like every other family, every other house has fowl.
Right.
So I have some poultry now, and I love the breeding of the poultry. That's the reason I have it. It really scratches that breeder's itch because you can produce a lot. You could hatch a lot of eggs. You can eat them, and it's not a big deal. So if you got something wrong color, wrong conformation, you can eat them. You can eat your culls, and then if you got some that are healthy, well, if you just put it down, it's not a big deal because that chicken's unhealthy. You'll get the other one sick. It's, with dogs, that's not a thing. If you got a unhealthy dog, you might spend $80, $100 a month for the rest of its life for medication.
Yeah.
Chickens are different,
Right.
So it's a different level with the ethical thing. You can have a few more. You could hatch 100 in a year. It's different, and you can get a lot done. It really opened my eyes to what breeding can really be and how fast you could get something. You know, you could create a line in 5, 6 years. Dogs with modern breeds, that's tough. And another thing that the foul has showed me, people, there's a lot of peddlers, definitely. People follow big names like they would follow a breed. You'll hear a name of a chicken, whether, I don't know, whatever name, you can take that name like it's a breed, like it's pit bull,
Yeah.
like Rottweiler, like it's whatever it is. People will keep those animals for the name. You'll have one hen that's a nice, healthy, feminine, active 2-year old hen, and then you'll have an 8-year-old hen with a popular name, and people all know that hen is great, and it's short legs and it looks all weird. Why does that head look like a pigeon? Just wrong. But they'll want to keep, that famous named hen, and it could not even be true. That thing could have passed through 6 breeders in 8 years. One generation off to the next breeder, one generation sells to the next breeder. Came from a flea market. So
Yeah.
what I've noticed, you have better luck if you find a good breeder who's been breeding them for years when it comes to poultry. So if you know someone that line has been in their family for 30 years, first the father had it and now the son has it, and you buy it, that's a good way to start, as long as you get with someone who's not lying to you. So I take that with all the stuff I learned there into the dogs. If someone has had some dogs for 10 generations and it's what you like, you got a better shot than, it'll be more scattered-bred by default usually. If you look at the pedigree, and in 5 generations it's been through 4 different breeders, because it's not the same selection, it's not the person with the same criteria. Sometimes it takes 2 generations to run into a problem, or sometimes they'll run into a problem on the first breeding, but they just sell everything off, so you don't know what you're getting. And that's also when embark can come into in can be useful, but you have to know what you're looking for also with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Very well said. Yeah,
Right.
that happens with the dogs too.
Yeah, it
People
does.
will keep calls and breed them, or like I mentioned earlier, they'll get rid of them.
Mhm.
The game fowl is part of our, like he mentioned, it's part of our culture. So it's nothing for, it was just normal when I was a kid to go to them, see them, people have them, have a ton of them. And me, uh, I I got information from all different type of species of animals, dog guys, game fowl guys, horse breeders here and abroad, and different, uh, because a lot of the breeding techniques, they're the same across the board. The differences are, like with game fowl and dogs, they eat different stuff. They're the way they produce, they're not mammals, right? So in that respect, they're not the same. But the breeding methods and techniques are the same.
Yes.
And I found it interesting that the same terminology I was using, a game fowl breeder would use, or a horse breeder would use, or the same standards were being used, right? So what I did is I studied the guys that were at the top, because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be like Earl Tudor. I wanted to be like Frank Shy or Tessio in Europe, or Woody Stevens with racehorses, Ronald Boyles, guys like that.
Mhm.
So I studied their methods through pedigrees, talking with some of them, reading their books, right? And then I could apply what could be applied to the dogs. I could use it for myself. So, and he's right. Someone who has their own family of dogs, their own bloodline, whatever you want to call it, for years and years, if they're producing top individuals, that's the guys you want to go to. If
Right.
they have something available, right? You're better off doing that than going to somebody that just has a breed name. For example, Frank Shy said, don't follow breed names, right? Because without that performance, it don't mean nothing. It may be a hatch chicken, right? But that doesn't mean it represents the hatch bloodline. It's just the name, right?
Right.
So there's three things I tell people when you're looking for to get a hold of something, or even your own standards to keep. The three most important things to me, anyways, is who has them and what they do with them, how they're raised, which is epigenetics basically, and if the breedings click. Meaning, it doesn't matter how they're bred. If the breeding didn't work, don't keep it. I'm not one of those type where, well, it'll skip a generation, and they do, right? And you can use that breeding method. But for me, it's a waste to skip a generation when I can have it what I want every generation, right? And when I started out, I did heavy culling and heavy testing and only ended up with a few individuals. It's rare for somebody to do that because they're looking at how much time and effort and money they put into it. But in the long run, it's going to pay off because you'll have less calls. You'll have better individuals. So nothing in this game happens fast. It takes time no matter what. You have to have patience and experience, and you get that as you go along. And if you do that, you're going to be around for years and years. The only reason my stuff is still around was because my protege followed what I told him and used the same standards and methods that I use. And he still asks for information and advice and all like that, you know. So you can keep a family of whatever going for a long time. With game fowl, you can do it quicker. So for example, if you had game fowl and you have dogs and you're breeding your game fowl and you get the results quicker and you have more individuals, you can use that information with your dog, which is going to take longer, but the end result is going to be the same. It's just with chicken, it comes a lot faster. You have a lot more. I mean, they hatch in what, 21 days or whatever it is.
One day, yeah.
You know, yeah, they can lay eggs, so many eggs over a long period of time, and you can have a lot more of them. If you put money to money for the same price that you use on dogs, the same amount you use on dogs, you can have a ton more individuals with game fowl or any birds, basically, because the cost would match up like that. You can, for $5 you can feed a chicken for a week or whatever, whereas $5 a day for a dog, something like that. I don't know what the actual money is, but looking at it like that. So you can have more of them. You can breed them and look at the results and then apply it to your dog or horses or whatever.
Right. But let me ask you guys this, since y'all both dealt with the fowl part. Would you say that a bird, a chicken, fowl can take way more inbreeding than a dog can? Martin.
So in theory, yes, that's what people tell me. The amount of, chromosomes they have more, so there's more of a combination and it's not as tight. Like humans have less than dogs, so dogs can take more than humans or whatever. But in my theory, I've done way more in the chickens. They were able to withstand it, but those specific individuals were bred by somebody who had them for almost 30 years. And with the dogs, I personally haven't done as much with the dogs. Like I've done pretty tight breedings where they're tight for fur moms, like way too tight for fur moms where they wouldn't buy them, but probably nothing extreme to Schoolboy. So in my own experience, I would say yes. And you can get away with it because, I mean, if you only have one surviving individual that's good, that makes it to adulthood and into the brood pens with the chickens, that's fine. That's great. Hey, we got a good one out there. If it doesn't work next year with the next ones, we'll just take one step back and we'll keep it at 4 times the dad. And with dogs, maybe. But I feel like with dogs, a lot of people, if they only got one individual out of the litter that survived, they wouldn't go that far. But maybe they would. I don't know. That's to everyone. But I lean to saying yes. I lean towards saying that chickens can take more.
Okay. Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yep, but then because you got to think about like ethical issues for as what you'll face with dogs, being that you can dispose of chickens
Yeah.
rather easily. Like you give them to a brother like me, and I'll show you what to do with chicken if you don't want
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
With game fowl, that's hard because they not regular chickens.
oh,
You ain't gonna bake a game fowl and eat it. Like it's not like
what's
that.
what's the difference? What's the difference in it?
They're tougher, man. The muscle. You'd have to boil a game fowl for about 5 hours to get it soft.
Really? Yeah.
There's a bit of a difference. The taste when
Yeah,
when my chickens ate,
yeah,
they taste more natural. I think. I mean, like, oh, these are
yeah,
different.
yeah,
I tell the
yeah.
the
Now,
flavor.
with chickens, they don't live that long anyway before you butcher them anyway. So, but a 2 or 3 year old chicken game fowl compared to a 2 or 3 year old, uh,
Rhode
uh,
Island.
Rhode Island Red or something like that. There's a difference, man. I know game fowl guy. They wouldn't eat their chickens because
Really?
they're too tough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
They'd feed it to their dog, or they'd feed it to
I don't think
even their pigs or whatever.
Right.
But
So
as far as egg production, the egg it isn't the same.
oh
it
yeah.
has,
And
okay.
if you do raise your chickens, whether they for food or game fowl, they are more natural. They are healthier. They don't have all that junk inside them, chemicals or roids or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So they're cleaner. But as far as the breeding aspect, what he said was pretty spot on, especially the part where, let's say you inbreed and you have that where now it didn't work, right? You just go back one generation and move in a different direction from that point.
Mhm.
The inbreeding part with dogs is you have to understand certain things, like you're not going to get a lot of individuals that are top performers, right? But if you get one or two, because they're so heavily inbred, that's all you need. And you can move forward like that. I'm not a fan of heavy inbreeding because, in my experience, it's not necessary. You don't need it. The reason you do it is to capture the traits, to retain the traits that they have. So if you make an inbreeding one time and you got that, you don't have to repeat it over. You don't have to keep doing it over and
Right.
over.
Yeah, you
Except
said
in this sense, let's say you do father daughter,
mhm.
right? It worked. Now with that same individual, you might want to go mother to son, or you might want to go brother sister. So with those three inbreedings like that, that's all you need, and then you can move forward. And I prefer line breeding. But the game fowl guys I knew, they really didn't inbreed that much because they were competitors. The breeders I knew that produce a lot of birds, yeah, they inbred. And maybe for the reasons, like he said, the chromosomes and like that, they can take it better. With some pit bulls, like the red boy blood, you can heavily inbreed them. I don't know the reason why. And with Jeep dogs, you can inbreed them probably maybe 3 generations. But like with the Zebo dogs, you can't inbreed them. Heavy bred Daibo dogs, you cannot inbreed them. It's been tried. Tudor tried it. Carver tried it. They all talked about it, where it didn't work, right? And when you see inbreedings on Zebo, you see a loss of performance and a loss of health sometimes. So I would definitely go along with what they said because they have more experience with the individuals at the time. Daibo himself, sons and daughters of Daibo, Zebo himself, and sons and daughters of Zebo. So I prefer line breeding, tight and loose, because they're still all related, and some are heavily related, but you have crosses here and there to where it negates any health issues or uh, inbreeding mental and temperament problems, you know. But yeah, I would say with game fowl they can stand more heavier inbreeding than with dogs. And with race horses, I think I mentioned that here or maybe some, but I've done it a couple of times. If you look up any famous racehorse or just look at the breedings of certain particular racehorses, thoroughbred racehorses, there's no inbreeding.
Mhm.
And me, it has to do with the structure, maybe because they only have one toe and their ankles are real thin, whatever it is. But look up Secretary. You can see a whole 4, 5, 6 generation pedigree. None of the horses are related. And if they are, it's very distantly related.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's common with all horses, but the ones I looked up, look up Citation or Secretariat or Whirlaway or Seattle Slew or any of them. We don't see the same names anywhere for several generations. It's mostly outcrossing, and they're always going around looking, whether it's the United States or Europe or South America, trying to bring fresh blood in all the time.
So with horses, I think Lee said this a few days ago. They don't produce as much offspring as the chickens or the dogs
Yeah,
too. So
true.
that is a pattern that I hadn't really thought about until he said that, and it's true. You know, when they can produce a lot of offspring, it seems like if you got a cull 50%, it's not a big deal. Now, when you're talking with horses,
Good point.
you might not want to cull 50%. With the fowl or the dogs, if at the beginning, if you say, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to cull 50%," but it's gonna get me where I need to go eventually, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
definitely limited because they can only have one foal, sometimes two. And what I've seen, if they have three, none of them live. If they
Mm.
have three offspring for one breeding, they don't live. They can have one or two with horses. So that's true. They're limited in the numbers that they can produce. And whether it's nature or whatever doing it that way, and then their gestation period is longer. Like I said, for chickens, it's 21 days. For dogs, it's 2 months, and for horses, I'm not sure. It may be 7, 8, 9 months. What their gestation period is. So they do have less individuals, but like I said, they really don't. They really don't. Some I'm sure do, right? And if the horse makes it and it's healthy and all that, they might use it because inbreeding does concentrate the traits. The gene pool is smaller, so you have a chance of concentrating those traits, and then hopefully that individual can produce it when you breed it, produce the same traits.
Mm. Mm.
Well,
So, Martin, what are your thoughts? Do you do a lot of dog shows and things like that?
I really want to, but with the restaurant, the weekends
It'd
are
be hard, don't it? Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to be here in the slow season because of tourism. I can go in the slow season, which is now up until like maybe February.
Hmm.
It's easier for me to get involved into some fun shows just
Yeah.
to get out and kind of feel. I did one, and we're planning to do another one where it's a non-sanctioned show the first day,
Yeah.
and then the second day on Saturday it's a sanctioned show. So we're gonna go up to Washington State. We're gonna try and do that. A few of us with some dogs that people have dogs for me. We're gonna try and do that. So I'm toying with it. We want to do it.
Bless you.
That's
Bless.
just
Especially.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a good way because I always wanted to ask people like that because a lot of us breeders are not in the dog shows because we don't have time uh, per se. But I see a lot of dudes, send their dogs off with handlers. That's some more money.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You know what I'm
definitely.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
it is.
I always say this about dog shows: in any particular class, uh, only one person's going to be the happiest.
Yeah.
The first place, and only 3 people can win for that particular class.
Yeah,
So the chances of you winning, unless you have a record of having conformationally sound individuals that can win on a consistent basis, basically you're just going there because you like to go to dog shows and you like the camaraderie and the
right.
talking and the networking and all that stuff. But going there expecting to win, when I used to go to dog shows, I never that if I won, hey, that was great, it was nice, but I never expected to win because there's so many individuals involved, and then it's up to the judge's idea of what he considers a good individual that can win. And most of the judges agree to a certain extent, but again, talking about if you're looking to get some gain on your investment, dog show is not it.
Yeah.
Do it because you love it. Do it because you want to
Right.
get out there. There's benefits to taking your dogs too. They get to travel. You have a companion with you, maybe a protector with you, and you get to meet other people and converse with other people and just enjoy the show. You might be able to buy some product or some memorabilia or whatever. So that's how I looked at the dog show.
Right. Yeah. It got to be fun because some people take it so serious. You know what I'm saying? They bring in 4 or 5
Yeah,
dollars. You'll never beat
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah,
They get
yeah.
4 or 5
And they
dollars.
get what I don't like is when they don't win, they get mad.
Right. Right.
Like that
Yeah.
that stupid judge, he don't know what he's looking at, this and that. Come
Right.
on, dude.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that don't even make sense.
Yeah. So, hey, Martin. So,
Yeah.
like, for as modern day techniques and things like that you could devise to newer breeders. I know you was talking about pictures and things like that. What way? How do you feel about the market right now? I'm kind of thinking like, they always say the COVID buyers that are breeders that came about. I don't think they're going to be able to last, and the dogs are going to pay for it. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I can say now more confident that I've thought about a year or two came by. You have less impulse buyers. I would have people who on Thursday they weren't even thinking about adding a dog to their family, and on Saturday they were buying one from me. I used to have a lot of that. Especially depends where you advertise, like newspapers or ads like that, online ads. So that was a lot bigger, like 2016, 2018. You'd have a lot of that. So we don't have as much of that. Now it's more specific. You got the thing called Good Dog. That is a good tool for people looking for a dog. You have people who are in the breed, who love the breed, and then they follow the people who have dogs that they like. People still contacting me for that. But it's definitely the impulse buyers are gone right now. Maybe they have one and they want to add a second one just because. And then we would also have the people who would buy a dog fall in love with their dog. They got a nice dog on the first time and they are happy, and then they want to breed. With that first female dog they bought, they'd have 3 litters. They'd keep maybe 1 female from the first litter and then breed that second generation for 3. They fix them. They're not trying to cull. They're not trying to pet home. And then they're full of dogs. 3 dogs in the house. They can't breed anymore. They're stuck. They just keep their pets. And that's it. They had a good, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 year run. And then that happens. I've sold dogs to a few people who have done that.
Yeah. Stay on
Yeah,
that.
we used to say the lifespan, the average lifespan for pitbull people that are involved with it is about 5 years. If you can last more than 5 years, you're probably going to stay in it. Most don't. And they have that short run and that's it. Because, I don't know, they expect too much or they want too much. They want things to happen fast. And they think people should buy their dogs based on a pedigree. And I mentioned this before, and I'll mention here real quick. In the past, when we advertised dogs, and I didn't really sell a lot of dogs, I gave some away. I sold some here and there. But at that time, you could advertise, their game. He won. He's a champion. His daddy won. Daddy game and mommy are their winners and grandpa and all that. You can't do that anymore. So how do you market your dogs? Well, for me, it's simple because this relates to the past too. If it's puppies, the puppy should be healthy, dewormed. Pedigree should be correct. Shouldn't have no fleas, no parasites, right? Should have a good temperament, outgoing, right? Amiable towards people, loves kids like that. That's the type of dogs I raised. Didn't matter they were pit bull. If it's an adult, same criteria. They're healthy, they're tough, durable, they're athletic. He can run a treadmill. He's obedience trained. He's house trained. You can ride him around in your car. You can take him to Disneyland, do all this stuff. If you're breeding dogs with that mindset, even if it's a Borbal or a Rottweiler or whatever, and they use that same individual for work, that criteria should still be the same. Because if I'm going to sell a dog and I say, yeah, he's good with kids, he's a grown dog, 2 years old, stud, I'm selling this stud, right? Or 3 years old, whatever it is. He can be inside the house. He's good with kids. He loves my wife. He has some obedience training. He understands certain commands, right? Sit, stay, whatever it is. That's how I would be raising my dogs and breeding them. And not only that, he's familiar with pulling weights if it's a pit bull, and he can run a treadmill race. He can do the wall climb. That's what I would be doing with my dog, because in the past, that's what I did with pit bulls for their original function. I was training them or teaching them, or, for if they made the grade, I was going to compete with them. So they already knew how to work. They weren't shy or timid. You could take them anywhere you want. They could be around people. Loud noises didn't bother them. Guns didn't bother them. Music, none of that stuff. I think that would be a selling point if people could do that with whatever breed of dog they have.
Mhm.
You're going to have people flocking to you, man. You know, they don't have to be highly trained, obedience, and this and that, but just some basic things about them that where they could bring it into a home, even if it's a dog they're not familiar with. It's a grown dog, and hey, this dog listens to me. He doesn't tear up my furniture when he's inside the house. He's not barking all day if I got him in a kennel outside or whatever.
Mhm.
And I just, maybe somebody will take me up on that and start doing that. I don't know.
That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. Um, Martin, modern day. Well, let me ask you this. Y'all said something. Y'all said the average breeder lasts about 5 to 7 years. I don't believe you can do anything forever, but what is a respectable time to where you think, this is a crazy question, that a breeder can complete a program to get to that point, like I've developed my own lines, I have my traits, I had a good run. How long does that take?
So the time that it takes, first you have to what are we trying to accomplish? We want a gene pool within the breed with specific traits, and whatever the criteria for that is, that's the end point. So that's where it be, because I mean you could get 80% of the way there and it looks like you're done, and it might be enough for a lot of breeders, and you might start calling it a line at that point, or you could keep going. That last 5% is the hardest, might take just as long as the first 95%. But I think if everything goes very, very well and you have a high number of dogs, like 20 dogs, you could probably do that in about 9 years, I think. I look back at what I've done and I said, all right, if I would have doubled the number of dogs I have at the same failure, at the same success rate, but I doubled it, I think I would be there by now, just
Mhm.
because your odds are better and you have more. And maybe I had a lot of breedings miss, so if I would have doubled maybe I would have got there by now. So I say probably about 10 years if you have about 20 dogs and your criteria isn't crazy, like a good guardian that's also a pet. Now, if you have crazy criteria, like you need to do this, you need to do that, it's a working dog, it does this. It's a working dog for protection, but it can tell the difference between a female and a 12-year-old boy. It's not a complete robot; it'll just attack whatever if you
Mhm.
tell it to. If you have really high criteria, it'll probably take a little longer.
Right, right. What? I'm back at you, Martin. What were some key things in your dogs that made you say, "I'm not using them"?
Um, Vigor, just like, how is this 4-month-old puppy just not hungry right now?
Mhm.
Come on, give me something. Be a dog.
Right,
What's wrong? Like, there's nothing wrong with the puppy. The vet says there's nothing wrong, but it just doesn't have the want to.
right.
it just doesn't want to. Like, come on, be a dog. It's just not. We're not going to use that, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they didn't make it on the property past 8 months. And I mean, we had a checkup. The dog is fine. The dog lived. I think it's still alive, but I mean, it's not nothing I want to reproduce for all my dogs to be like that, you know.
This question is for both of y'all. How soon are you studying the dog? Does it start from the whelping box, or does it start at a point after that? For a dog, okay.
From birth.
From birth.
From birth.
Uh-huh.
Because the way I looked at it, especially, and he was right on about that analogy he gave. I would say the same thing about 10 years. Right. Now the breed, your dogs are always evolving. There's always evolution. There's always improvement. Right? But you can establish your family of dogs. It takes about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So from the time they're born, what I looked at, since I had a certain standards for the particular dogs I wanted, that was my foundation. They had to have this, that, this, that, this. If they didn't, I didn't use them, keep them, breed them. Right. Once that's established and you're going to start breeding your dogs, those are the patterns you follow. Now, you have to have the dogs from a young age so that you can see how they behave, what their behavior and temperament is like, what their health is like, what their physicality, their ability, their athleticism, all that stuff. So those were the criteria I used after each generation. Are these pups acting like their parents did when they were that age? If they did, those are the ones I'm going to follow. Now, I'm going to keep them all pretty much because, pups are just pups. Things can change over a period of time. But when I see those same traits being transferred generation to generation at a young age, which includes all I just said, plus good work ethic, intelligence, health, vigor, vitality, all that stuff like he was talking about. That's the type of dogs I wanted. So I had to see that with every generation. Once you do that, and people argue with me all the time because pups are pups and all that. Once you do that, you pretty much know at a young age which ones have more of a likelihood of turning out than those that don't. And like I said, I get arguments with that all the time. So my thing is to tell them that just means you don't know your family of dogs. How are you going to be breeding dogs for 10 or 15 or 20 years? And you're going to say, well, I don't know how this pup's going to turn out. I don't know whether he's going to make it or not. You should be correct 80, 90% of the time. You're never going to be 100% right. You're always going to have, one you thought was going to work out, had a great potential to work out, and it don't. Mm-hmm. But that should be on the low end. That shouldn't be happening all the time, because like tends to beget like. They're going to behave a certain way because that's the way their parents did, and that's the way their grandparents did, and great grandparents. After 10, 15 years, you should have 4, 5, 6 generations of dogs, of your own family of dogs. And if you maintain those standards, most of them are going to come out like that. Even the one, like in my time, even the ones that weren't game, they still had a lot of those characteristics of good work ethic and good with people and intelligence and athleticism. They just didn't make the grade at the final end of it. But all that other stuff, yeah, they had it too. So that's the way I looked at it. That's how I judged my pups. Are they behaving like their ancestors? And if it's your first time getting a particular dog or a pup, then you have to have that information from the breeder or other people, testimony, whatever it is. Hey, this guy's dogs act like this and they do this and that, or this bloodline, Bolio is different from Bully Son, and Mayday is different from Turtle Buster, whatever it is. The family of dogs, especially a particular family of dogs from a particular breeder, should have similar characteristics all the way around.
Gotcha. So, Martin, have you been able to maintain these 20 dogs yourself? You got the property facilities for it, or have you had to have?
I have the room to have 20 dogs. I don't have the time or the kennels right
okay
to have 20 dogs. Right now I got up to 11, and I could have had maybe one more and been comfortable, but right now my goal is to get down to 6 by about New Year's, and
Okay.
all of the ones I have now, they got to go with another person. So
Okay.
once they go there, I plan on having about 6 puppies after that, and then we'll start the process over.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have 2 puppies right now, and then I have 3 planned breedings to keep two females from each of those breedings, and
Mhm.
then we'll just see. You know, out of 6, so at one time, maybe in June, I'll have what I consider 6 puppies. You know, some will be like the smallest ones will be, you know, like a month old, 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll consider them all puppies, and out of those 6 or 8, actually, not gonna is gonna make it. You know, I'm gonna have all those females, and I'll be able to pick what meets my standard. It would be awesome if it was one of each.
Right.
But
Right. Yeah. I'm waiting to do a breeding. I did some of my shepherd breedings, and I'm gonna pull some off it, but I'm really waiting to do a Corso breed next year that I'm gonna get ready and go to the next level on. Finally, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like uh it's kind of like what people say, you really do breed for yourself, you know what I mean? You know, and then the public is kind of second, because you are creating something for you first that fits your lifestyle. I got children, I got things I want to see in a dog, which is a family dog. Like what you say, you breeding a dog that's a home protector, a home guardian, and that's the goal. I don't want it to go eat nobody's ass up, but be intelligent enough to recognize a threat between a non-threat. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dogs typically, again, maybe that's changed in modern times, right? They were natural protectors.
Mm-hmm.
And even mine, who weren't aggressive towards people, none of mine ever bit anybody. And they were more docile with children than they were with adults. And I think it's because they knew that the kids were small and weak, and they didn't want to hurt them, right? So one of my dogs, he might jump all over me, but he wouldn't do it with my 3-year-old daughter. He knew he could hurt him. And most of mine were like that, you know? So being that they're natural, even mine, they would protect to the level of the threat. Sometimes it just meant getting in between an individual, maybe growling a little bit, but they would never full on attack somebody unless that person attacked one of my family members. They just weren't that way. So some of that might have been bred out of the dogs, or it's not followed, right? Even our mutts, German shepherds, right? When I say protectors, they were always close by. They were always looking out for us, whether it was a person or a snake or a coyote, whatever it was. They were always on guard, right? And again, they would protect to the level of threat. So when you do that, and when you're breeding your dogs, if you have a successful program, and again, I get a lot of backlash on this too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have all these dogs in your yard, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is, and they're basically all related. You should be able to go out there, and whatever individual you want to breed to should produce for you.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, no, well, this one produces better than that one. Okay, that happens. But in my pedigrees, if you look at them, all the dogs are related. Some are litter mates, sons, daughters, aunts, uncle, whatever. They all produce good dogs because they all have that standard behind them of the way they were raised and which ones I use and competition and all that stuff. And because in my mind, I might lose this dog. Well, I still have his brother, and his brother's going to throw good dogs. I still have his daddy. Oh, well, there's no females in this litter. Well, I still have the cousins to the pups in that litter that didn't have any females, but I still have their female cousins. I still have their aunt. I still have their mama. So that's the way I look at it. You have to get it to a point where any dog you choose most of the time in your family of dogs, they're going to throw something for you, something good. And then it's just a matter, because it doesn't happen 100%. The ones that don't, then you don't breed those.
Mm-hmm.
But if you follow that pattern, You can pretty much go out in your yard. Well, I like this one. Maybe you like this one's temperament better than that one, or you like this dog style better than that one. That's just a preference. It doesn't mean that one throws better than the other, except for the individual person. But they all produce game dogs or athletic dogs or good air or like that. That I had to get to that point because I didn't have a lot of individuals. So whichever ones I kept were the best ones of all the breedings I did. And again, it's never going to be 100%. You're still going to have culls. But what happened is my culls started getting less and less, and the performance individuals that could win and be at that high level became more and more. Whereas when I first started out, maybe 2 or 3 in the litter were good and 6 weren't. Well, after 10 years, now I got 6 that are good and 2 or 3 that ain't.
Right.
For me, it has to go that way, or you're just breeding for whatever. You have no goals. But there's always evolution. You need to add certain things sometimes because you're lacking some things, right? But I tried like hell not to lose the good traits that my dogs had, and if they had a major fault or what I considered a major fault, I wouldn't breed them no matter how good they were or how well their pedigree was or none of that stuff.
All right. Hey, so I want to tackle this subject and because I hear my a couple of my guys, Ben White, love you. I'm finna talk about your setup. Ben White is a breeder out there up north. I don't know if y'all ever, he been on my show, but he's the one that feed the guy, the dog, the English Masters, the raw, and he let him run free. You know Ben White? You got to look it up, Schoolboy. You might not know who Ben White is.
I think I saw, maybe I saw a clip of him. Yeah,
he's big on TikTok. Big on TikTok.
Yeah.
Then we got Jordan of Exotic Borwels. They did a show together, and they was talking about the securing your animals. Now, Ben, he's in an area where he can run dogs free, and ideally, most of us would if it was possible. But where we live, we got to secure our dogs. So, and then I see a lot of kennel facility talks and things about and things like this. Let's talk about the chain and the securing your dog versus the kennel. I'll start with my thoughts. Is first off, it goes by the laws of the land you live in on what you can do to secure your dogs. Because I know some places you can't put them on the chain if that's your preference. Mine are in kennels, and we get them out, we get them running, and we get them playing. Mine don't have no psychological like prison damage from being in the kennel. They go get in the crate. You know, my dogs don't, to me, my dogs don't have people put kennels as like it's some form of imprisonment. And but what's your guys' thoughts on kennels, chains, securing your dog? However,
I can go first on this. So I personally use kennels. I have some 20 by 20 chain link kennels with some ugly concrete I did. I just mixed it up in a wheelbarrow and
20 by 20.
Yeah, 20 by 20s, and I
nice.
took so much concrete. I think I did 30. I mixed 30 bags at a time, and I got 75% of every kennel with concrete. And then I built like a 10 by 10 little carport thing with pressure treated 4x4s for each corner, and then metal roofing. And then I put 2 dog houses right outside of that. So they're inside their dog house, and they step out of their dog house, and they're underneath the cover for rain or shade.
Yeah.
And it's big. I could put 3 puppies in one of those, like 5 months old puppies. Man, they're running around in circles. So I have 3 of those. I have room to build one more in that area behind my house. And then I have 2 10 by 10 kennels in the front of my house. Okay, that's what I do because it works for me. It's easy for me to manage. I get up in the morning and I let them all out, and they all run. I have one older female who doesn't get along with them, so she gets let out at a different time. Mm-hmm. And then I had one female who had a a bum knee, so I let her out with another dog that's more gentle, that's not going to make her run or run into her. So I let out like 6 of them at a time, and they run, and they know when it's time to go back in. They like their kennel. It's their safe spot. They go back in. That's where they get fed. So they like to eat, and hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's time to go back in. I just open the door and they go right back in their 20 by 20s or even their 10 by 10s. I've done it's like a zip line from tree to tree, and it's got the little run so they can their
Cable run.
cable run. That's the one. I've had those.
Yeah.
I had 2 of those at one time. It was easier for me to manage my dogs in kennels than in those cable runs, because one tree had a bunch of, I don't know what you call it, sap or pitch.
Yeah.
And it'd get my dogs, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
I couldn't get it off. Use the peanut butter trick, whatever. And so that didn't work, and I used my other cable run. But then you have to worry about shade. You have to worry about what kind of doghouse and like where to put it. And then I don't know. Sometimes I'd have the hardware snap. So I think it's how you can manage your dogs. As far as the laws and stuff like that, I mean, if you have a 10-foot chain in a 10-foot kennel, which gives them more area, with the chain, they can go 10 feet this way, 10 feet that way. You got more square feet than the kennel where they're at. But I think it matters on how you can manage them better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. With pit bulls, I prefer chain hookups for one of the reasons he said. You have more room to move around, right? And also there's more freedom of movement. They know they're confined, and even in a kennel, they know they're confined, but the kennel can have that, like you said, imprisonment effect. Now, once they become accustomed to it, it's not that bad. But some dogs, especially pit bulls, man, they'll try and rip that kennel up. They'll yank on the chain and the roof. And with pit bulls, especially like mine, if you have them next to each other on a kennel and it's not covered, and even if they're covered, put a plywood in, they scream all day, man. They will not settle down because the dog's right next to them, maybe a foot away, maybe whatever, where you can have more space between dogs with chain hookups, but you need a lot more room too. Now that 20 by 30 kennel run, I could live with that all day long.
Yeah.
If it was my dog, if they could be separate, one here, one there, like that. If I could do that with 20 dogs, that'd be perfect. But other than that, it depends. I know people that love cable runs. There's a lot more work to it. It really takes time and experience to learn which hookups work, and you got to keep an eye on them because it's going back and forth, and it can wear down and break off and all this stuff. The dog can get hung up and injure itself more if it has a long distance to run. It could hit something and hit the end of that cable run and yank its neck and all kinds of stuff. Now, where I live, it's a lot of agriculture, dairies, livestock, cattle, sheep, hogs, all that. So in the county, any dog can run loose. There's no limit to them because we have hunters, we have farmers, and all that. In town is different. I haven't checked, but there might be a certain number of dogs you can have, and even in town though, you can still have them chained up in town, right?
Okay.
Even here in town, you can have hogs and chickens and goats. You can't have cattle and horses in town, but you can have a lot of different types of livestock in town. But in the county, it's almost wide open. You can have as many as you want, except for cattle and horses. They have to have a certain amount of acreage per number of individuals. But other than that, I just with pit bulls mostly, I like the chain hookups. And like you said, check your state, local, county, whatever laws and see how you can maintain your dog, because you may think it's okay, but if you're violating something and somebody says something, it's going to be a problem for you. So always check that first to see how you can maintain your dog and keep it.
Right. Hey, that's about all I got. Is there anything else you guys want to cover?
Uh, not really.
Okay,
It's on
okay.
you, Joe, or Martin, if you want to
Martin.
bring something up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just here as a
we talked about before that I could bring up real quick.
Okay.
When you talked about with Schoolboy, when you talked about showing people your dogs that they're parasite free, that they're good, that they've got some basic training and they're good with the family, showing that to people is really important today. A lot of people, they talk about social media. Oh, you have to make reels, you have to do all this professional photography, and that definitely helps a lot. But if you just show people the basics of your dogs online, that also can help, because it shows people who you are, gives them a little insight into your world with dogs, and then they kind of feel like they know you. They kind of feel like they trust you, or maybe they don't like you and they go away, or they like you and now they're a fan, and they feel more comfortable with giving you a call because they know how you are, what your personality is, and they feel more comfortable to buy an animal from you.
Right. Right. That's so true, brother, because you have a lot of times when dogs attack people, boy, they give us the game a black eye. You know what
oh
I mean?
man, yeah,
Yeah.
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 I had some videos of my family members interacting with pit bulls, and they had some of my blood. Some of them had some of my blood in them, but I was raising them basically for kids. One of them I whelped for friends. I whelped a litter for one. My grandsons raised a couple of dogs for different people, and I just happened to take these videos interacting with my grandchildren, interacting with my children. One we had inside the house, and I had video when we first got him. He was a little puppy, and he was raised basically in a kennel, but there was hardly no sunlight, so he wouldn't even walk just on his own. He would crawl, right? When we first got him, I have a video of us we went and picked him up at and then we stopped on the way at a what do you call that? A rest stop, right? And Angie got him out and she's walking with him. He's crawling on the ground, little pup, 3 months old, whatever it was. Then I took a video later on of him playing with the grandkids and inside the house with Angie. He's following around in the car vehicle. No timidity, no, he wasn't scared of nothing. And it's just a matter of bringing that pup out of that shell and doing it. But I had several of them. I can't find them for some reason. I don't know if I lost them or whatever. But along those lines that Mark was saying, if you could show things like that, I think it would bring people, potential buyers, to say, hey, I want a dog like that. At least the dog behaves and he's playing with the kids and he's good. He's not acting stupid, not chewing the house up. I even had one where, just on command, get in the crate, come out of the crate, go to the bathroom, come back in, get in the crate. He'd be on my bed. My wife used to let him lay on the bed. Okay, get off the bed, get in your crate. He'd just go
You
like
just
that.
do
He was just do it.
it.
You can do that with a lot of different breeds of dogs and a lot of dogs. Some you can't train them for shit. They're built different. That's okay. But a potential puppy like that, 3 or 4 months old, maybe that you have house trained and he interacts with the kids and all like that, just in everyday life. I think that would be a good marketing tool. I'm surprised more people haven't done it. You know,
Yeah, I know.
uh,
When you look at a commercial for anything, a vacation, a stay at a hotel, that's what they're showing you. So that's what we
that's
should
what they're
show
showing you.
That's
our
right.
life
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
our dogs.
Yeah,
Hey, you dropped a lot of game that'll help people. You need to show these things. I did one not too long. I did it twice. Uh Within the last 2 years, and people love that video. Like I was sitting my little girl in with that Central Asian Shepherd, and let her feed them. To show
yeah,
people, the dog ain't crazy like that. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because
Put the hand in the bowl.
that is the number one question a lot of breeders get. Are these dogs good with children? You know what I mean?
Right.
You get that
Yeah.
question a lot. Hey, what's your
Yeah.
guys' thoughts on adopt, don't shop?
What is that?
So that's like a movement that tell you to go to the pound and get a dog before you deal with a breeder.
Yeah, I'm kind of leery of that, and for this reason, why is the dog in the pound?
Hmm.
That's the first thing I would ask. It's somebody's problem. They didn't want anymore. whether it got too big, whether it bit somebody, whether it can't be house trained, whatever it is, it's somebody's problem. And in a lot of these cases, that's all you're getting is a potential problem that maybe even the pound don't know about because of the environment it's in. Whereas you take it home, it's in a different environment, and the behavior might be reflective of something that triggers that dog to do something, that you wouldn't want. So with a lot of them, I look at them as being a problem that they're just pawning off to somebody else. They don't have the wherewithal or whatever it is to cull them.
Mm-hmm.
So they just either cut them loose in the street or they take it to a pound. And, nowadays you can't hear anyways. You can't just drop a dog off or even a cat. They won't take cats where I live, but you got to pay for them to take your dog, right? To be in the pound.
Yeah.
Most people, they don't even want to do that, right? But the ones that do, my question always was, well, why did they get rid of it in the first place? Why don't they want it? Sometimes it's because they're moving to a different place and they can't have this big old dog or whatever. They move from a home to an apartment, whatever it is. But most of the time, it's for a negative reason why they got rid of it. So
right.
I don't know, man. You can't save every animal.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude of a lot of people.
Right.
They won't call anything. And for me, calling in today's, it means don't breed it, right? Yeah. But again, I have this investment, this much money. I'm going to breed it and try and sell some pups off of it and make something back on my investment or whatever it is. And that's not a good way to go about it, man.
Right.
Spay and neuter or whatever you got to do, but don't breed the damn thing.
Right. Yeah.
I can see it from a couple ways. It's either the dog comes from an unstable home, like a divorce, or the people are between jobs, or they never were like that stable. They got their car repoed kind of thing. Or the dog is unstable, but you never see a finely bred dog in the shelter.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the lie they not telling. It's not a pure breed dog problem.
You're not going to see a dog like Batman in a shelter.
Right.
I could say, hey, Batman's available, and I'll have offers for money. People who will say, please, if you're having it for free, I'll take it. I never even wanted a dog, but I like that dog. You'll never see like a finely bred dog. You might see someone's culls, like you had said, but you're not going to see a finely bred dog in the shelter. It's either coming from an unstable home, or the dog's unstable, or they're doing this thing where they're bringing dogs from other countries.
They do that too. Yeah. See, I'm gonna do a show on this. I got to do a show on it. Somebody been asking me to do it because there's a lot of misconception. And when you adopt,
most of them, honestly, they're mutts. They're mutts that are in there. Even like my some of my relatives, they'll adopt dogs like that, and they. Does this look like pit bull, this and that? It may have some pit bull in, but it's not a pit bull. And I tell them,
right.
And most of them are just, the shelter tell them, well, it's this, that, and that put together. The shelter don't even know. No. But most of them, like you said, they're not well-bred dogs or something of value that's in there.
And then when you adopting, they say adopt, don't shop. But when you go to adopt, you're gonna pay a fee for that dog, a few $100. You know what I'm saying? So you still buying while they down talking breeders that can, that's kind of working.
It's big business, man. It's turned into a multi-million-dollar a year business.
It is. And I'm finding out too, I've been finding out something else about this. Breeders are getting into rescues and this and things like this. Breeders.
Yeah.
So because I found out that like you can get government grants, donations, and everything. So
that would be another show. That would be another show too, brother, because in fact, I talked about it the other day on, somebody's really serious about this, making a business, meaning obedience training, protection training, whatever it is, hunting, whatever. There's loans, government loans, there's government grants for that. And they're not, it could be anywhere from $5,000 to $250,000 to $1 million grants, free money for that. If you have the wherewithal to put the plan together and the projection of where you're going to go with it and how much it's going to cost you and sale, all that stuff. So I mean, for some young person that's really interested in that, there's a lot of help for you to do that.
Yeah. And then this is another thing. I see a put down in the dog community. It's called puppy mill. You know, it's always gonna breathe out. Yeah, puppy mill. Man, if you knew what a puppy mill really was.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, it's government grants for puppy mills. Drive through Missouri if you want to see a place with 200 dogs.
Oh yeah.
That's USDA approved. I'm gonna do a show on shit. Yeah.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. And they've been around a long time. They had you know, on 2020 and a lot of them news programs where they go to these people's places and have, you know, real puppy mills, you know.
That's a real puppy mill, yeah. So yeah, fellas, that's all I got today, man. I thank y'all for
good
coming.
show, man.
Yeah,
thanks for being here, Martin.
No, thank you.
You helped a lot, man. It just, you know, there's nothing that you said that I couldn't agree with. It just spot on. And what shows you, like I mentioned before, is a lot of this stuff is across the board. You know, he got game fowl and a different breed of dog. I got pit bull. You got a different breed. A lot of it is common between the animals, even though it's something different, you know. So I really enjoyed listening to you talk, Martin. That was good, man.
Yeah, he's good.
Thank you. I have a lot coming from you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yes, sir. Well, guys, I want you to go over and follow Schoolboy on his social media. Schoolboy got some really good content over on his social media. He drop something about every week, don't you? Sometimes several times a week.
Yeah, I try and put two or three videos out a week. Then I put pictures up, and my daughter does all that. You know, she does the thumbnails and all that. And I got
School Baby,
hundreds of School Baby. I have hundreds of topics that, you know, I'll get to them eventually. And I'm always open. If somebody wants to suggest a topic, I'll try and do my best to put it up there.
Right. Martin, tell them where to find you. You do excellent content as well. Keep people informed.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Fuerza American Bulldog, or you can find my personal Facebook page, Martin Gonzalez Arceo, and then it'll have in parentheses Fuerza American Bulldog. So even if you type in Fuerza, you'll probably find my personal page too.
All right. Well,
and if you're ever in Oregon and you want to have some good tacos or some
right here,
enchilada, whatever, just go to his restaurant. If I go up there, I'm gonna stop by, Martin. I'm telling you, man.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, everybody, we're approaching the holiday season. This will probably be airing the day before Thanksgiving. So happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays. Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right. See you.
Peace.
And that wraps up another episode of NWA Cane Corsos. Thank you for being a part of our Cane Corso community. Remember, you can stay connected with us beyond the podcast. Find us on all major media platforms by searching for NWA Cane Corsos. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Just hit that follow button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at nwacanecorsos@gmail.com. And if you're a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address. For more resources, exclusive content, and links to all our social media profiles, visit our website at nwacanecorsos.com. It's your go-to destination for everything dogs. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we can't wait to bring you more exciting episodes where we explore the fascinating world of dogs.